Alright guys, today's video is going to be a little bit different than usual because it's going to be a first time where I'm actually sharing my experience of a 360 camera. Now this is not something that I've used before. In fact, it's my first ever 360 camera and it's called the Insta360 X5. Now after using it for the very first time, it totally changed the way I take content or my perspective on how I actually shoot content. You know, whenever you actually go out, you typically use your phone and you just shoot like this, and basically you're just shooting one side or one angle of whatever you're looking at. However, if you actually use something like this, it actually allows you to capture the entire scene. And after going through my entire gallery while I was traveling, I was just looking back at the scenes, at the shots, and I was like, wow, I could actually not just see myself in the frame, obviously, but I could also see everything around me. I don't have to miss any detail, and I could just relive the entire moment by just checking out all these shots. So let's talk a little bit about the Insta360 X5 and how it can actually change the way you actually take content or videos. Now first things first, let's take a look at the hardware. What do we actually got over here? Apparently we do have some newer sensors on board. Now I've not used any Insta360 camera in the past, so I don't know what they used previously. But what we have here is a dual 1/1.28 inch sensor, and you guys already know we review a lot of smartphones here, and that basically means it's a fairly large sensor. Now this allows you to capture in more light, reduce the noise, and ultimately I am actually quite pleased to say that the results coming off the camera is actually very good. Furthermore, in terms of the resolution, it goes all the way up to 8K at 30 FPS. Now personally, I don't shoot at that kind of high-res quality. What I do is actually 4K 50 because it matches with my camera. So whenever I go into post-editing, it actually allows me to synchronize very smoothly, but you could go all the way up to 8K 30 if you want to do that. Furthermore, what they have in here is actually their triple AI chip that actually helps it to be even better in low light conditions. Now I'll show you a footage later on to see whether that's really the case. And finally, in terms of the battery life on here guys, it can go up to 185 minutes, and that's basically about 3 hours on a single charge. By the way, the lens here is actually supposedly even replaceable. So I actually got this replacement lens kit in case I smash it. You can actually do the replacement on your own without having to go into a store, which adds on to the hassle. So yeah, very clever in terms of that. Now, let's move on and talk a bit about the footages because that's the main thing that I want to share with you today. I actually want to start off with taking videos during the day. Now, I was actually going up to Genting a couple of months back, I think, and I was actually in the car and my partner was holding this thing up through the sunroof, and wow, that was actually our first 360 shot because I was really impressed with what you can capture over here. Not only can you see your car, you can see the road and everything, but it just gives you a whole new perspective into how the shot can be taken. And just take a look at the quality guys, it's very stable even though the road was a bit bumpy. And this brings me to a point about the stabilization, and that's actually quite insane. When you're just holding this thing around, your hand might shake here and there, but whenever I take a look at the videos, it's always so stable. It looks like it was being held by a gimbal. And I'm not even pulling your leg here, just look at the footage yourself. Everything is just straight out of the camera. Now moving on, let's take a look at a couple of afternoon shots. When the sun is super bright up there, that's when the camera actually shines the best, obviously. So I was in Phuket by a beach and I was just, again, really want to try out stabilization. So I was running along the beach here and there, and just check out the footage for yourself. It did a fantastic job, and I was able to see the entire 360 view. And again, I could relive the entire moment when I was at the beach. It was a very beautiful place, and the Insta360 X5 here was the perfect device to shoot those content. Now moving on, I was also in Paris, I think 2 weeks ago, and that was where I also pulled out the camera to take a couple of shots together with my partner. Again, you can see here during the golden hour, which is about sunset, where there's not a lot of light, a bit of light, and you could still see that the camera did a fantastic job because of those larger sensors. And you could again see the entire scene, everything is very stable. But one thing I noticed here is that the microphones on board was actually able to pick up our voices even though it is extended quite far up. So just in case you don't carry yourself a mic, whenever you're going out, you can actually just rely on the microphones over here to actually pick up all your voices, and I think that's actually quite cool. Now last but not least, one final thing is obviously in terms of the night mode. For this, you actually have to go into the settings and go into AI Pure Video mode. It's sort of their fancy name for night mode to give you a more pleasant image taken during low light conditions. But you could still see that the footage here came with minimal noise and quite a decent amount of detail. So just in case you want to take some night mode kind of videos, you can always go into AI Pure Video and capture all that. Now just in case you're wondering, how do you actually edit the videos? Well, you actually have two options over here. The first option is actually to go into your smartphones, download the app, and you can edit everything inside. There's a lot of templates for you to play around with, so it just makes you even more creative. Or you could just use the PC version if you're the kind of person who edits on a desktop like myself. The PC edition will work just fine. Now, before we go, I want to show you a couple more things about the settings on here. It's actually very easy to navigate. So first up, to go into your quick shortcuts, you just drag down from the top and you can go into your settings. Very, very easy. If you drag up from the bottom, this is where you can actually adjust the resolution as well as the frame rate. Now, if you just want to go and choose pure video, camera mode, single lens and whatnot, you tap on that video icon and that's where you get into more access over there. Moving on, if you just drag from the right towards the left, this is where you get into your pro mode kind of options where you can tweak stuff like your log, your EV and all that, manual settings basically. And if you just want to take a look at the video that you just shot, you swap it to the right and that's where you get into your gallery. By the way, the Type-C port is actually hidden in here and the micro SD slot is actually inside with this removable battery. So all in all, again, very impressed with the Insta360 X5. I think all of you should actually try this out for your own selves. When you actually try out something like this, you actually get to see the kind of possibilities in terms of the kind of videos or content that you can actually capture. Sometimes it doesn't matter whether you share it on social media or not, but being able to look at it, relive the moment, be in that scene once again, is something that other devices might not be able to do today. So yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts on the Insta360 X5. If you have any further questions or you want to know more about this device, I'll put in a link down below. You can check it out for yourself. It's retailing in Malaysia for about 2,500 ringgit. I think in US it's about $550, which is about less than half the price of a flagship device. So yeah, that's pretty much it for today's video. Thank you for watching. Hopefully it's helped you out in a way or another. And I look forward to seeing you guys in the next one. Do take care, stay